Sir, she put something in your cake. That was all it took. 6 chilling words from a little beggar girl that stopped a millionaire's heart and changed his life forever. But who was this girl? Why did she care enough to speak up? And what kind of darkness was hiding behind the smile of the woman he was about to marry? He had everything: wealth, power, prestige. But in one whispered warning, his perfect world began to crumble. Because the truth. It wasn't just betrayal. It was conspiracy. And the person who saved him had nothing. No name, no family, no home. What made her risk everything for a stranger? This is a story about the power of one voice. About a man who thought he had it all, until a child with nothing gave him everything. And it all began with a slice of cake. If you're ready to uncover the truth, feel the heartbreak, and witness the power of compassion, then make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. You don't want to miss a second of what happens next. Now, let's begin. The sky over Manhattan had just begun to melt into gold. Sunlight reflected off the buildings like warm syrup poured over steel, and the city glowed, humming with late afternoon life. Nathan Hale stepped out of the town car, adjusting the sleeve of his charcoal blazer and looking up at the restaurant he had reserved 3 weeks in advance. The Amaranth, tucked between 2 galleries on West 63rd Street. The Amaranth was the kind of place you didn't find on Yelp. It didn't advertise. You either knew about it or you didn't. Nathan knew, and tonight, everything needed to be perfect. He took a breath, deep and quiet. There was a familiar pull in his chest, not anxiety exactly, but something close. Restlessness wrapped in anticipation. He checked the time. 6:57 p.m. She would already be there. Across the street, hidden in a bus stop's shadow, a small figure stirred. Nathan didn't see her at first. His eyes were on the entrance, the gold-handled doors, the white roses flanking each side in tall glass vases, the host standing tall with a clipboard and a knowing smile. But then he heard it. Sirah's small voice, barely above a whisper. Nathan turned. She couldn't have been older than 6. Her hoodie was 3 sizes too big, sleeves frayed at the wrists, and her jeans were torn at both knees. Brown curls framed her dirt-smudged face. Her hands clutched a folded napkin, the kind waiters toss aside without thinking. He froze. Not because he was surprised by the girl's presence. This was New York, after all, but because of her eyes. Dark, deep, and far too wise. The kind of eyes that had seen too much, too soon. She didn't say anything else, just stood there, waiting. Nathan stepped toward her, reached into his wallet, and pulled out a $20 bill. Then paused. A second later, he added another $20. Here, he said gently, make sure you eat something warm tonight. Okay? The girl nodded, barely looking at the money. Thank you, she murmured. Then their eyes met. And in that split second, something passed between them, something unspoken but sharp. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say more. But then she turned and disappeared around the corner without another word. Nathan watched her go. He didn't know why, but he felt cold, not physically, not from the breeze that swept the sidewalk, but from the space she left behind, like someone had just walked through him instead of past him. He blinked, shook his head, and adjusted his collar. No time for thoughts like that tonight. Inside the Amaranth, soft piano music drifted through the air, wrapping around the scent of jasmine and citrus oils. The lights were dimmed just enough to make every table glow, and the waiters moved like dancers, silent and efficient. Celeste was already seated. She looked stunning. Her hair, honey blonde and glossy, was pinned loosely over one shoulder. A sapphire dress hugged her frame, matching the delicate earrings that caught the candlelight when she turned. "Nathan." She smiled as he approached, standing to kiss his cheek. "You're almost late." "Fashionably so," he replied, grinning. "You know me." He pulled out her chair before taking his own. The host offered them menus, but Celeste waved him off with the grace of someone who had been here before. "I already ordered for us," she said, placing a hand lightly over Nathan's. He blinked. "Already you were 2 minutes past 7, she teased. "And I know what you like." Nathan laughed softly, but something shifted inside him. He glanced around. The waiter who had brought them water nodded at Celeste like an old friend. A different server appeared with a small silver envelope inside, a handwritten card for Mr. Hale and Ms. Langdon, our most cherished guests. He hadn't told anyone it was their anniversary. Celeste picked up her champagne flute. "To us," she said. Nathan clinked glasses, but his mind wandered. Had she been here before? More than once. Of course she had. They had dined here together once last winter. But that was a different night, a different atmosphere. That night had felt like discovery. This night felt like a performance. He tried to shake the thought. Celeste reached for the candle in the center of the table and adjusted it slightly. "I love this place," she said. "Doesn't it just feel untouched, like nothing bad could ever happen here?" Nathan nodded, but something had already happened. Outside, that little girl. Why had she looked at him like that? And why couldn't he stop thinking about her? He tried to refocus. Celeste was talking now about a gallery she wanted to visit, a property in the Berkshires she thought they could escape to this summer, a watch she saw that just screamed Nathan. He smiled at the right times, laughed when appropriate, but under the table, his hands were clenched. The soup arrived, tomato bisque with basil oil and microgreens his favorite. She had remembered. He looked up. Her green eyes sparkled across the candlelight. "Everything okay?" Nathan nodded, but something in his chest stirred. There were moments in life, rare and quiet, where the air shifts just slightly, not enough for most people to notice, but enough for those who've lived long enough to feel it in their bones. Nathan felt it now. Something was off, and he had no idea that the unease building in his chest would soon be replaced with horror. Because outside, a little girl named Arya was about to risk everything to save the life of a man she had only just met. The meal began like a well-rehearsed symphony. Each note struck in perfect harmony the clink of cutlery, the low murmur of conversations around them, the occasional laugh, soft and delicate, from the neighboring tables. Everything about the amaranth oozed perfection. Every detail seemed curated for comfort, elegance, and intimacy. And yet, something in Nathan Hale's mind buzzed like a misaligned piano string. He studied Celeste Langdon's face across the table. Her skin glowed in the warm, golden lighting. Her posture was poised, confident, graceful in that effortless way that had first drawn him in. Still, he couldn't shake the sensation that something beneath the surface was shifting. The tomato bisque was followed by a citrus arugula salad dressed with wildflower honey. As the waiter set the plates down, he smiled at Celeste, not the polite, distant smile of a stranger, but the kind of grin that lingered. Familiar, too familiar. Celeste gave a slight nod back. Nathan noticed it, a tiny gesture, easily missed, but charged with subtext. She wasn't surprised by the interaction. She expected it. He watched the waiter retreat. Something tightened in his stomach. "You've been here without me, haven't you?" he asked, keeping his tone light, like he was teasing. Celeste blinked, then laughed gently. "Of course. I told you I've brought clients here before. You know how picky investors can be." He nodded, but didn't entirely buy it. "Is that why they knew to put rose petals on the table?" he asked him, glancing at the delicate white and blush blooms strewn across the linen. "You told them it was our anniversary." Celeste's smile didn't waver. "Maybe I hinted." Nathan gave a half smile. "Maybe you've hinted before." The silence that followed wasn't long. Maybe 4 seconds, but it was enough. She tilted her head, her eyes playful. "What's this about?" "Nathan?" He took a sip of water. "Nothing. Just curious." She laughed again, light as spun sugar, and reached across the table to touch his hand. "I love that you notice details," she said. "It's one of the reasons She stopped. A flicker crossed her face. Then she smiled again. "One of the reasons I feel so safe with you." The salad was crisp, sweet, and fresh. But Nathan's appetite had dulled. He kept chewing, but his mind was elsewhere. He remembered the girl, the way she had hesitated, the way her lips parted like she wanted to say something more. Her hands had trembled slightly. That kind of fear didn't come from a scam or a hustle. That came from something real. His gut twisted. What if she had tried to tell him something? What if he hadn't given her the chance? He shook the thought off again, picking up the glass of champagne. The bubbles shimmered in the flickering light. Celeste raised her glass as well. "To surprises," she said, smiling over the rim. Nathan clinked her flute. "To truth," he said without thinking. Her smile froze for a microsecond, barely noticeable. Then she laughed again. "Always." They moved to the next course, seared scallops with black garlic foam. Nathan tried to stay present, tried to talk about the art exhibit she wanted to attend, the new client she was mentoring, the apartment they were thinking of buying together uptown. Everything she said felt normal. Everything he felt said otherwise. "I love that this place feels private," she said at one point, glancing around. "Like we're floating above the noise of the city." Nathan nodded slowly. "It's beautiful." But she asked, sensing his pause. "No but," he said, smiling thinly. "Just observing." Celeste leaned in, her elbow grazing the side of her wineglass. "You're acting strange tonight." Nathan met her gaze directly. "I guess I'm just thinking about how long we've known each other. 3 years is a long time. And yet I still feel like I'm discovering new pieces of you all the time," she said softly. There was something so smooth about her words. Too smooth. Nathan had built his career reading people, investors, negotiators, bluffers, liars, and lovers too. He didn't want to suspect Celeste, but the pieces weren't fitting the way they used to. At that moment, a waiter approached carrying a small, square box wrapped in burgundy ribbon. He placed it beside Celeste and stepped back with a subtle bow. "Compliments of the house," he said, then disappeared. Nathan frowned. He hadn't arranged any gifts. Celeste opened it delicately. Inside lay a gold bracelet adorned with tiny sapphire stars. She gasped slightly. "It's beautiful. I didn't get that for you," Nathan said. She tilted her head. "No." He shook his head. "The restaurant did." She laughed. "Maybe you're not the only admirer I have." He didn't laugh. Neither did she. After a moment, another silence. The scallops were gone. The plates were cleared. A violinist began playing something soft and mournful from the corner of the room. Dessert was next, and with it, something else, something darker. The air shifted. Nathan watched as two servers approached with covered trays. They lifted the domes with synchronized precision. 2 slices of cake, Belgian chocolate, raspberries, crème anglaise drizzled in delicate loops. A small chocolate plaque atop one of them read, "To New Beginnings." Nathan's chest tightened. Celeste looked at the cake with a glowing smile. "You remembered?" she whispered. "I didn't request that," Nathan said flatly. She blinked. "Oh," she said a second later, brushing her hair back. "Maybe I told them once before, and they remembered." Her voice was steady, but the answer came too quickly, too prepared. Nathan felt something inside him turn. Celeste picked up her fork, twirling it lightly. "Don't you want to take a picture before we dig in? It's almost too pretty to eat." "He didn't move." She laughed softly. "Come on, Nathan. It's not that serious." He leaned back in his chair and studied her, then looked down at the 2 plates. The desserts were nearly identical, but not completely. One had slightly more cream. One had a single raspberry placed at a sharper angle. He noticed. He always noticed. She placed her fork down and stood. "Excuse me for just a moment," she said. "I'm going to freshen up." Nathan watched her go. He watched how heads turned as she walked past, how effortlessly she drew attention. He watched how the servers nodded at her with the same familiarity as before. When she disappeared into the hallway, he leaned forward. The cake sat between them like a centerpiece for a celebration he hadn't planned. He looked again at the message, "To New Beginnings," and that was when he saw her, Aria, the girl from outside. She was at the far end of the restaurant, half hidden behind a pillar, eyes wide with panic. Their eyes met again, and this time she didn't hesitate. She ran, straight toward him. The polished marble floor barely echoed as Aria's tiny feet darted across it. The moment felt unreal. Nathan blinked as she came closer, hair disheveled, face flushed, chest heaving from the effort of running. In her tattered hoodie and threadbare jeans, she was a stark contrast to the glittering dining room. And yet, it was as if every eye in the restaurant suddenly faded, every sound dulled, leaving only the sound of her breathing and the pounding in Nathan's chest. She stopped just beside his table, too small to reach his ear from where she stood. She tugged gently at the sleeve of his blazer. He bent down, instinctively leaning toward her. Her lips trembled. Her voice barely rose above the sound of the violins in the corner. "Sir," she whispered, "don't eat that cake." Nathan froze. His eyes locked onto hers. She looked terrified. Not nervous, not uncertain. Terrified. The kind of fear that lived in people who had seen violence up close. Her hands were trembling so hard that one of her sleeves slipped down past her elbow, revealing a deep purple bruise on her arm. He leaned in closer. "What did you say?" She glanced toward the hallway, the direction Celeste had gone, then back at him. "She put something in it," Aria whispered. "I saw her. Please don't eat it." The words hit him like a cold gust of wind. She put something in it. He blinked hard, trying to process. "How do you know that?" he asked, his voice low, careful. "I saw her in the kitchen," Aria murmured quickly, words rushing out now, like she was racing against time. "She talked to the chef, not all of them, just one. He gave her something. She poured it. I saw." Nathan's pulse quickened. The cake sat on the table, beautiful and perfectly arranged. And now it looked monstrous. Aria stepped back, glancing toward the host stand. "She knows the people here," she said, voice even lower now. "She can't see me. Please. I just wanted to help." Before he could stop her, she turned and ran again, faster this time. She weaved between servers and tables, bumping a tray and making a glass clink dangerously against a plate. A waiter reached to grab her, but she slipped through his arms and dashed toward the rear exit. Gone. Just like that. Nathan stood, knocking his chair slightly off balance, and scanned the room. He wanted to follow her, but it was too late. She had vanished. The manager approached with a frown of concern. "Sir, is everything all right?" Nathan looked at him, searching for something in the man's expression, something deceptive, but he found only a carefully maintained professional smile. "I thought I saw someone I knew," Nathan muttered. He sat back down. His hand shook slightly as he adjusted the fork beside his plate. The cake looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Celeste returned moments later, her heels clicking softly against the floor. She looked radiant, as always. Her lipstick had been reapplied. Her hands were smooth, manicured, resting delicately on the back of her chair as she slid into it. "Miss me?" she smiled, reaching for her wine. Nathan's throat was dry. He nodded. Of course. His eyes dropped to the plate of cake. Her slice. His slice. A message written in chocolate. To new beginnings. He tried to smile, but the muscles in his face resisted. Celeste noticed. "You're unusually quiet tonight," she said. "Just thinking." He replied. He paused, then offered the safest answer he could muster. "About how lucky I am." Her smile returned, but he saw it differently now. Too perfect, too calm. She picked up her fork, twirled it between her fingers again, and leaned forward slightly. "I hope you're hungry," she said. "I've been dreaming about this cake all day." His mouth went dry again. She raised her fork to take the first bite, but Nathan gently reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Let me serve you," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Tonight's special, after all." Celeste laughed softly. What a gentleman. But he saw it, the flicker of resistance, a momentary tightening around her eyes, a pause so brief most would miss it. She released the fork. Nathan reached for the knife and sliced the first piece from what had been her plate. His hands were steady, though his heart was thundering in his chest. He plated it, then turned to his slice and cut it as well. And as he leaned forward to place the dessert in front of her, he swapped them. The movement was seamless. It was a habit he'd learned from years of dinners with people he didn't trust. Watch where the food goes. Remember what hands touch what plates. Tonight, it wasn't paranoia. It was survival. Celeste smiled as he slid the plate toward her. She picked up her fork again, this time without hesitation. "Bon appétit," she said. He nodded, and then watched as she took the first bite. The restaurant buzzed around them, wine glasses clinking, laughter rising and falling, soft music curling through the air like smoke. It was a beautiful night. But Nathan wasn't listening anymore. He was watching her face, the way she chewed, swallowed, licked the corner of her lip with a glimmer of satisfaction. She said, eyes closing. "You have to try this. It's unbelievable." Nathan took his own fork and lifted it slowly. He pushed it through the delicate layers, brought it to his mouth, ate. His stomach turned immediately, not from the cake, but from fear. What if Aria was wrong? What if this had all been a mistake? What if he'd just committed the most terrible betrayal of his life? He looked at Celeste again. Her eyes were on him, watching, waiting. The smile was still there, but something behind it had shifted. She raised her glass of champagne and sipped. "How's it taste?" she asked. Nathan met her gaze. Steady now. "Sweet," he said, "but the aftertaste might surprise me." She tilted her head, amused. "I think it's perfect." He nodded once. "We'll see." For the next several minutes, they ate in silence. The cake was rich, decadent, beautifully crafted. Each bite felt like walking a tightrope with no net. Celeste continued to speak now and then lightly, casually about weekend plans, a concert in Brooklyn, a designer friend opening a boutique. But her voice no longer sounded like music. It sounded like noise. And Nathan listened for every pause, every shift in tone, every drop of tension. The first sign came gently. She reached for her wine, then hesitated, blinking, then smiled again. "I think the champagne's stronger than I thought." Nathan's pulse quickened. "You all right?" "Of course," she said, placing a hand on the table. "Just lightheaded." He forced himself to nod. He knew her tolerance. It wasn't the champagne. He picked up his glass, sipped, and watched. Arya's voice echoed in his mind. She put something in it. He believed her now, completely. But what he didn't know yet was why. Why would Celeste do this? Why tonight? And who had helped her? Because the more he looked around, the more he realized this wasn't just her idea. There were too many eyes, too many secrets in this room. And this night, he thought would end with a proposal was only just beginning to reveal its truth. Time began to stretch in strange ways. Nathan could hear the clink of forks, the low murmur of conversation from the surrounding tables, but it all felt far away, like he was watching the night from the other side of a glass wall. Every movement, every sound, every glance from Celeste felt heightened, charged with some invisible current. Across the table, she was smiling again. But now, Nathan saw the edges of it, the practiced symmetry, the way it didn't quite reach her eyes. He tried to breathe, deep and slow, though his chest was tight. If Arya was right, and he now believed, with growing certainty, that she was then the cake Celeste had just eaten was meant for him, not her, and he had switched them. He glanced again at her half-empty plate, the fork resting delicately beside it, the smear of chocolate and cream left behind. Her lipstick marked the rim of her champagne glass, just a kiss of crimson. She seemed relaxed, too relaxed. The silence between them had become harder to ignore. Nathan reached for his water glass and took a sip, trying to gather his thoughts. "You seem distracted tonight," Celeste said, voice soft and honeyed. "Are you all right?" He looked up, letting his eyes meet hers directly. "I've been thinking about how we got here." She tilted her head. "Here, as in this place," he nodded. "Here, you and me, 3 years, 100 dinners, 1,000 conversations. And yet." She waited, the candlelight flickering between them. "And yet sometimes I feel like I'm only beginning to really see you," Nathan said. Her smile didn't falter, but her fingers twitched once beside her wine glass. "Well," she said, her voice calm, "seeing someone clearly is a gift, isn't it?" He leaned back in his chair slightly, searching her expression for anything guilt, fear, hesitation. But what he saw was the same curated version of her he had always known, controlled, beautiful, undisturbed, until she blinked, just once, slowly, and when she did, her eyelids seemed heavier than before. "Are you tired?" he asked, careful not to let his voice betray the pounding in his chest. She shook her head, just a little too slowly. "No, just Maybe the wine hit me harder than expected." Nathan nodded. He wanted to scream. He wanted to ask her what she had put in the cake, who she had spoken to, why someone like Araya, someone with nothing to gain and everything to lose, would risk warning him. But instead, he kept his tone measured. "Do you want to go home?" he asked. Celeste hesitated. "No, I'm fine." But her posture was changing. Her shoulders slouched ever so slightly. Her hands rested on the table longer between movements. And once, she blinked again, slower than before. He couldn't watch it any longer. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, glancing at the screen under the table. No missed calls, no messages. He hesitated before opening the camera app and silently tapped record, letting it capture the subtle changes in her demeanor, her sluggish responses, the quiet signs of something going wrong. "What are you doing?" she asked suddenly, catching the motion. Nathan looked up, locking eyes with her. "Just checking a message." He lied. She stared at him for a moment longer than necessary. Then she smiled again. But it was thinner now, as if the effort took more from her than it should have. "I'm fine," she said, unprompted, maybe just a little warm. Nathan nodded again, but he could see the flush rising on her neck now, a soft, unnatural pink beneath her flawless makeup. He needed answers, but this wasn't the place. He didn't know who else was watching, who else was involved. He didn't know how deep this went or if someone was already monitoring their conversation. Instead, he made a decision. He raised his hand and motioned to the waiter. "Would you mind boxing up the rest of our dessert?" he asked politely. "I think we'll be heading out soon." The waiter nodded, gathering the plates. Nathan noticed the way his hands trembled just slightly as he picked up Celeste's dish. The server didn't meet his eyes. Instead, he moved with quiet urgency toward the kitchen doors. Nathan memorized his face. Celeste picked up her clutch and stood slowly. Nathan stood too, watching her carefully. Her knees seemed to buckle for a fraction of a second, but she caught herself on the edge of the table. She laughed, a short, breathy sound. "Maybe I do need some air," she said. He stepped beside her, offering an arm. She took it, her grip oddly weak for someone so poised. They walked out of the Amaranth together, the maitre d' offering a bow as they passed. Nathan gave a small nod in return, eyes sweeping the lobby, looking for any familiar faces, servers, security, anyone who had lingered just a second too long. They stepped onto the street. Night had fallen fully now. Manhattan sparkled in every direction, headlights dancing across the pavement, the scent of roasted chestnuts and hot pretzels wafting from a vendor nearby. Celeste exhaled slowly. "It's beautiful tonight," she said, her voice distant. Nathan didn't respond. He led her gently toward the car, still holding her arm, still watching every movement, still unsure how long he had before the substance, whatever it was, took hold more visibly. He opened the car door for her and waited until she settled inside. Then he walked around to the driver's side, not to sit, but to call the only person he trusted at that moment, Detective Leo Ramirez. It had been years since Nathan last spoke to him, back when a former business partner had attempted to embezzle from their joint venture. Ramirez had gotten to the bottom of it quickly, cleanly, and had kept Nathan's name out of the papers. He owed him. Nathan tapped the number and listened to the ring. 1 ring. 2. Nate Ramirez answered. His voice was gravelly, but warm. "What's going on?" "You don't usually call unless someone's bleeding." Nathan looked through the car window. Celeste was leaned back now, eyes closed, her breathing deep and even. "I need your help," Nathan said quietly. There was a pause. Say it straight, Ramirez replied. I think someone just tried to poison me, Nathan said, and I think I just made her eat it instead. The line went silent. Then came the response. Where are you? Nathan told him. Keep her in the car, Ramirez said. Don't go anywhere. Don't eat anything. Don't drink anything. And if she starts to crash, call 911 before you call me. I'm not sure how much time we have, Nathan said. You'll have enough, Ramirez replied. I'm on my way. Nathan hung up and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Then he stood in the cold, arms folded, staring up at the sky. Everything he thought he knew had begun to crack. Celeste's beauty, her charm, her familiarity. It had all been a mask. He didn't know how long it had been in place. He didn't know who else was wearing one. But he knew one thing for certain. Oh, if Arya hadn't warned him, he would be dying right now. And the girl in the back seat would be getting exactly what she came for. The silence in the car was suffocating. Nathan sat in the front seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, though the engine remained off. Outside, the city continued as it always did, indifferent. Horns in the distance. A saxophonist on the corner playing for no one. The rhythmic scuff of hurried shoes on pavement. But inside the car, time had frozen. He looked at her through the rearview mirror. Celeste sat motionless in the back seat, head resting against the window, eyes half-lidded. Her breathing was still steady, but shallow, and her skin had lost a fraction of its glow, just a slight pallor that wasn't there before. Nathan clenched his jaw. His thoughts spun in tight, violent circles. He still couldn't believe it, not fully. Just hours ago, he'd imagined proposing to her, a weekend in Paris, a ring hidden in her coffee cup, photos on the Seine, and now he was watching her quietly descend into the symptoms of a poisoning meant for him. Why, that question looped endlessly in his mind. Why would she do it? How long had this been planned? Was he just a target, a mark? Or had she ever really cared at all? A knock on the driver's window snapped him out of the spiral. Nathan flinched, heart leaping, before he turned to see the weathered face of Detective Leo Ramirez peering in, even in plain clothes. Leo carried the weight of law in his eyes. Not authority, necessarily something heavier. Experience, loss, hard-won clarity. Nathan opened the door and stepped out. Leo took one look at him and gave a slow nod. She's still breathing barely, Nathan said. She's been fading since dessert. Leo nodded again and reached for his phone, speaking a few quiet words into it. Within moments, a black SUV pulled up behind Nathan's car. 2 EMTs stepped out, wheeling a small kit and gurney. Nathan opened the back door. Celeste blinked, disoriented. Nathan, she whispered. What's going on? Her voice was soft, but uncertain. The moment felt surreal. He'd heard that voice say, I love you. Heard it laugh, tease, comfort. Now it sounded hollow, stripped of warmth. You're going to be okay, he said. She looked around. Why are there medics? Leo stepped forward. Ma'am, you're showing signs of acute poisoning. We're taking you in for evaluation. Her eyes widened slightly. What? That's no, I feel fine. But her sentence crumbled as her body swayed. The EMTs caught her gently, laying her back against the seat. Nathan stepped back and watched. He didn't feel triumph, no satisfaction, just a dull ache in his stomach. She had tried to kill him, and even now, part of him hated watching her like this. As the EMTs loaded her into the gurney, one of them whispered to Leo, who nodded sharply. Then they turned to Nathan. She needs to go now. We'll get her stabilized. Will she survive? Nathan asked. Hard to say, the EMT said. Depends on what it was and how much she consumed. She was wheeled into the back of the ambulance. The doors slammed shut. And just like that, Celeste Langdon was gone. Leo stood next to Nathan, hands in his coat pockets. Talk, he said. Nathan exhaled. He told him everything how Ario had warned him, what she said, the way Celeste reacted, the switch, the strange behavior of the staff, the bracelet, the plate that seemed prepared before they arrived. He finished with one quiet sentence. I switched the cake. Leo said nothing for a moment. Then he whistled under his breath. Gutsy move! Nathan shook his head. Not guts, just instinct. She's smart. She didn't plan this alone. No, Leo said. She didn't. He pulled out a notebook and flipped to a blank page. You said a girl warned you. What's her name, Aria? I don't know her last name. She looked about 6. Homeless. Maybe. She was outside before I went in. Then somehow got into the restaurant and told me face to face not to eat the cake. Then ran off. She say how she knew. She said she saw Celeste with someone in the kitchen. That she poured something in it. Said she recorded something. I didn't get more than that. She bolted. Leo scribbled, Kid that age doesn't risk that kind of thing unless it's real. I know. Think she's in danger. Nathan paused. If she saw what she says she saw. Yeah. She's in danger. Leo nodded. I'll pull the restaurant security footage. If she was in the building, we'll find her. If your girlfriend had help, we'll find them too. She's not my girlfriend, Nathan said flatly. Leo gave him a sidelong look. Sorry. They stood there for another moment. Then Leo looked toward the Amaranth, its pristine glass front glowing like a beacon. How much do you trust that restaurant? I don't trust anything anymore, Nathan said. Leo grunted. Fair. He turned to go, then paused. Hey, he said. You did good. Switching the plates? That probably saved your life. Nathan looked down at his hands. I don't feel good. You're not supposed to, Leo said. You loved her. Nathan nodded. I thought I did. Now you know better. The detective got in his SUV and pulled away. Nathan stood alone under the flickering street lamp, the cold finally seeping through his coat. He turned back toward the restaurant. He had questions, and someone inside had answers. So he walked up the marble steps again, pushed open the heavy door, and stepped into the warm, fragrant air of the Amaranth. The host, the same man who had greeted him earlier, looked up with practiced charm. Mr. Hale, he said. Is everything all right? Nathan stared at him, unreadable. I need to speak to your head chef. The host hesitated. He's quite busy at the moment. Perhaps if you'd like to. Now, Nathan said, voice low. The host blinked, reading the change in tone. One moment, he murmured, retreating through a side door. Nathan waited, eyes scanning the room. The violinist was still playing. Guests were still laughing. No one here knew that a woman had just been taken away in an ambulance, that someone had tried to commit murder between courses. The chef finally appeared. Tall, lean, late 50s, his arms streaked with faded tattoos. He looked at Nathan with the cautious respect of a man who knew the stakes had changed. I'm Chef Bram, he said. What can I do for you? Nathan took a step closer. 3 years I've been coming here, he said. I've sent clients, investors, friends. I trusted this place. Chef Bram said nothing. Tonight, Nathan continued, someone tried to poison me, and I believe it happened in your kitchen." A flicker passed through the chef's eyes. "I want to know," Nathan said, "who was working with Celeste Langdon. I want names, and I want them now." Chef Bram looked past him, toward the back hallway. Then he whispered something so quietly, Nathan almost didn't catch it. "You need to find the girl, the one who warned you. She saw everything. I think they're looking for her, too." Nathan's heart dropped. "She's still alive. For now." The chef stepped back. "I didn't help them," he added, "but not everyone in my kitchen answers to me anymore." Nathan turned without another word and walked out of the restaurant for the second time that night. This time, he wasn't thinking about proposals or pastries or champagne. This time, he was thinking about Arya, where she'd gone, who might be chasing her, and what she still knew that might save him, or destroy everything. Nathan had always believed in systems, in order, in reason, the architecture of business, the logic of negotiations, the precision of spreadsheets. Those things made sense, but now everything felt foreign. He paced his penthouse with restless energy, the skyline of Manhattan sprawling behind him like a painted lie. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of lights and towers and calm, but inside his chest, a storm howled. Arya had vanished. Celeste was in the hospital under watch, but still unconscious, and the Amaranth, that place had turned from sanctuary to stage. A performance, a trap. Nathan pressed a hand to his forehead. His phone buzzed. He lunged for it. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. There was silence at first. Static. Then a small, familiar voice. "Mr. Hale." Nathan's throat closed. "Arya?" A shaky breath on the other end. "I'm sorry, I ran. I was scared. They were watching." "Where are you?" he asked, stepping quickly toward the windows, peering out as if he could somehow find her through glass. "I can't say," she whispered. "They're still looking for me." Nathan tried to keep his voice steady. "You're not safe. You need help. I can send someone you can trust." A pause. "I only trust you," she said. His chest tightened. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to get anyone hurt," she whispered. I saw her, and I knew what that powder was. I saw my mom use it once, on herself." Nathan's pulse stuttered. "Your mother, she was sick inside," Arya said, her voice trembling. "She didn't want to live anymore, and I tried to stop her. But I didn't know what she took until it was too late. The powder was white, in a little packet, just like what Celeste had." Nathan swallowed hard. "That's how you knew." Arya's voice turned even smaller. "I still dream about it sometimes." He sat down slowly on the edge of the sofa. "I believe you," he said, "but you have to let me help you. These people, whoever's after you, they won't stop." There was another pause. "I think she was working with someone. A man. I saw him give her something in the hallway, near the kitchen. He had a scar on his hand. I remember because it was shaped like a hook." Nathan froze. Scar shaped like a hook. "Yes." A memory surfaced, not from dinner that night, but from a charity gala nearly a year ago. Celeste had introduced him to a man named Nolan Vex. He'd worn gloves indoors. When someone asked why, he said he had nerve damage from a cooking accident, but Nathan had seen the edge of a scar peeking out under the glove, jagged, curved like a sickle. He stood again, adrenaline rushing back. "Arya, I need you to listen to me. I'm going to find you. But first I need to know, do you have anything else? Proof A video? A recording?" "Yes," she whispered. I used a phone I found in a trash can. It still worked. I recorded her pouring something in your cake. I didn't know if I'd get a chance to tell you in time. Where is the phone I hid it? In an alley? In a crack behind a billboard on 44th and Kent. It's behind the one that says, "Love is power." Nathan memorized the location instantly. "I'm going now," he said. "Stay on the line." "I can't," Arya said quickly. "They're getting closer. I think someone followed me after I left the restaurant. I've been hiding all night." His chest ached. "You're incredibly brave." "No," she said, and this time he could hear tears in her voice. "I'm just tired of losing people." He wanted to reach through the phone and wrap her in safety. "You're not going to lose me," he promised. "Hold on, just a little longer." The line went dead. Nathan stood still, the silence louder than any siren. Then he grabbed his coat and keys and headed for the elevator. The city below was quiet in the way only certain parts of Manhattan can be at night, not truly still, but exhausted. Nathan parked near Kent and walked the final block, scanning every alley and doorway. The billboard loomed over the corner red and white, painted like a protest sign. "Love is power." He moved quickly behind it, searching with his phone's flashlight. There, a gap in the bricks, a plastic-wrapped phone wedged deep inside. He pulled it free, brushed the dirt away, and powered it on. Battery at 9%. The screen lit up. No passcode. He opened the camera roll. There was only one video. He pressed play. The footage was shaky, low quality, but the figures were unmistakable. Celeste, dressed in the same sapphire gown. A kitchen corridor. A man with a hook-shaped scar handing her a napkin-wrapped packet. She looked around, then poured it quickly into a small silver bowl. Stirred. Poured again this time onto a chocolate cake. The camera panned down, caught the plaque, "To New Beginnings." Nathan felt like vomiting. It was real. It was all real. He uploaded the video to the cloud, then called Leo Ramirez. "I've got it," he said as soon as Leo answered. "I have proof. Send it now." Nathan did. A moment passed. "Jesus," Leo muttered. "All right, we've got her. But this changes everything. That guy, the one with the scar, that's Nolan Vex. Names come up before in some off-the-books investigations. Alleged fixer, dirty deals, intimidation, maybe worse. He's still out there," Nathan said, "and Arya's still running. I'll have officers sweep the area near that billboard. If she's close, we'll find her. No uniforms," Nathan said quickly. "She'll panic. She doesn't trust the system." Leo paused. "All right. I'll send someone from my old team. Off the record." Nathan hung up and took a slow breath. Then his phone buzzed again. Blocked number. He hesitated, then answered. The voice was deep. Male. Calm. Dangerous. "You should have eaten the cake." "Mr. Hale." Nathan froze. The man chuckled. "You're making this difficult." "And I don't like difficult." Nathan gripped the phone tighter. "You came after the wrong person." "Oh, I don't think so," the voice said. "See, you were supposed to disappear quietly. No drama, no noise. A grieving girlfriend, a public memorial, a transfer of assets. Everything in order." Nathan's stomach turned. "Who hired you?" The man laughed again. "Let's not ruin the surprise." Then the line cut. Nathan stood in the alley, the cold suddenly more noticeable. His mind raced. This wasn't just Celeste. This was a coordinated hit. Someone wanted him gone, not just out of love, or jealousy, or greed, but wiped out cleanly, replaced. He stared up at the billboard again. Love is power, but sometimes love is a weapon, too. And tonight, the only one who had wielded it with truth was a child named Arya. He would find her. He would protect her. Because in a world full of masks and monsters, she was the only soul brave enough to speak up when it counted most. And Nathan Hale owed her his life. Rain began to fall in delicate threads across the city. It wasn't heavy or wild, just enough to coat the sidewalks in a soft sheen and muffle the usual roar of Manhattan. Nathan moved quickly through the quieter streets of the Lower East Side, every sense alert. His coat clung to his shoulders, damp and cold, but he didn't notice. He was too focused. Somewhere nearby, Arya was hiding. She hadn't answered her phone since their call. Every ring now went straight to voicemail. The alley where she'd hidden the phone was empty. No sign of her, no belongings, no footprints in the puddles. Nathan ducked under an awning near a boarded-up florist and tried to think. Where would a scared 6-year-old go when the world wanted her gone? Where do you hide when you've already been forgotten? He remembered something from their brief conversation, something small but telling. She'd said, "I've been hiding all night." All night. That meant she hadn't traveled far. His eyes scanned the block again, and then they landed on a narrow alleyway, 2 buildings down. It was easy to miss wedged between a closed yoga studio and a deli with a flickering sign. The perfect place to disappear if no one was looking. He stepped into the alley, careful not to make noise. The air smelled of wet cardboard and old metal. At the far end, just beside a stack of crates, something moved. Nathan slowed his steps. "Arya," he called gently. Silence. "I know you're scared, but it's me, Nathan." A pause. Then, from the shadows, a small voice. "Don't come closer." He stopped immediately. "Okay, I won't." She stepped out slowly, her frame shivering. A trash bag pulled over her shoulders like a cape. Her face was streaked with rain and grime, but her eyes were sharp, tired, alert, a child with a survivor's instincts. "I thought you were one of them," she whispered. "I'm not," he said. "You already saved me once. I owe you." Her bottom lip trembled, but she held his gaze. "They're still looking for me. I saw one of them earlier. He passed right by this alley." Nathan's hand stayed at his sides, open. "Do you trust me, Arya?" She didn't answer immediately, but after a few moments she gave the tiniest nod. "Then come with me," he said. "We're going someplace safe." She didn't move. "You promise?" she asked. "You won't turn me in?" "Not a chance," he said. She took one slow step forward, and then another. He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her small body, gently but firmly, shielding her from the cold. Her teeth were chattering now, but she didn't protest. "You're shaking," he said. "I haven't eaten since yesterday." Nathan swore under his breath. "I've got you," he said. "Let's get out of here." They slipped out of the alley and into his car. He started the engine, cranked up the heat, and handed her a sealed bottle of water from the console. "I don't usually have snacks in here," he said, "but I think I saw a protein bar under the seat." She gave him a tiny, grateful smile. They drove in silence for several blocks until Nathan turned onto a quiet, residential street lined with brownstones. One of them stood out not by appearance, but by purpose. It was a safe house. Leo Ramirez had arranged it years ago, back when Nathan had briefly considered entering city politics. At the time, it seemed excessive, paranoid, but now it felt like the smartest decision he'd ever made. Nathan parked in the rear, opened the private gate, and led Arya through a side door that required a passcode only he and Leo knew. Inside, the space was minimal but comfortable leather couches, blackout curtains, and reinforced locks on every door. Arya looked around, wide-eyed. "This is your house." "No," he said. "Just a place where no one can find you." She stepped inside, glancing at the shelves, the small kitchenette, the framed photo of Nathan and his late brother on the wall. She pointed. "Who's that?" "My brother. Miles," Nathan said. "He passed away a few years ago." "Cancer?" She looked at the photo a long time. "Did it hurt?" "Yeah," he said softly. "A lot." He moved into the kitchen and began preparing something scrambled eggs, toast, soup, whatever he could make fast. Arya sat quietly at the table, eyes following his every movement. After a few minutes, she spoke. "Is she dead?" Nathan paused. "No," he said. "Celeste is alive, for now. But she's under watch, and the people who worked with her, we're going to stop them." "Good," Arya said simply, "because I think they've done it before." Nathan turned. "What do you mean I heard them talking?" "In the hallway, before I recorded the video. The man with the scar. He said this was cleaner than last time." And she nodded. Nathan stared at her. "You remember exactly what he said?" She nodded. "He said, 'No mess, no witnesses. This one has to go down clean.'" His blood ran cold. "It wasn't a one-off. It was part of something bigger. You said you recorded it all. Only some. I had to hide before I could get the rest." Nathan sat down across from her. "We're going to take that recording to the police. But not just any cop. Leo Ramirez. He's the one who helped me tonight. He's safe." Arya looked unsure. "Cops don't help people like me." "Leo does," Nathan said firmly. She stared at her plate, thinking. Then she whispered, "Okay." He slid the food toward her. She hesitated for just a moment, then began to eat with slow, cautious bites. As if her body didn't fully believe it was allowed to relax. Nathan watched her, then finally asked the question he hadn't yet dared. "Where's your family?" "Arya?" She didn't look up. "My mom died. Dad left when I was 2. Foster homes after that. I ran away last year. You've been alone since then." She nodded. Nathan felt a lump rise in his throat. She was 6 years old. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a small silver chain. It had once belonged to Miles, just a simple pendant with the initials MH engraved. He placed it on the table. "This was my brother's. I think he'd want someone brave to have it." She blinked, then picked it up with reverence. "Thank you." He smiled, then stood. "Rest. I'll keep watch tonight." "You won't leave. Not even for a second." She curled up on the couch, the oversized coat still wrapped around her, and within minutes, her breathing deepened. Nathan stepped to the window and looked out over the street. The city was quiet for now, but he knew what was coming. There was a network behind this, a machine that swallowed people like Arya whole and left no trace. He had narrowly escaped. She had risked everything, and now it was his turn to fight back. For her, for Miles, for everyone who had ever gone unheard. Tomorrow, the mask would come off, and the people behind it would finally be seen. Morning came quietly. The light that slipped through the blinds of the safe house was soft and diffused, casting long stripes across the hardwood floor. Nathan sat in the armchair by the window, exactly where he'd been all night, watching the street below, sipping coffee gone cold. Behind him, Arya was still asleep on the couch, curled under a thick blanket now. one hand resting near her cheek. The silver pendant from Miles clutched tightly in her fingers. Nathan had barely slept. His mind had been too full. Of questions, of dangers, of decisions. He watched the city breathe outside delivery trucks, joggers, a dog barking 3 blocks away. It all looked normal, but beneath the surface, something darker moved. He picked up his phone and called Leo. "I've got her," he said. Leo didn't sound surprised. "Figured you would. She's safe, but not for long. The people behind this aren't just killers. They're clean, organized." She heard them say it wasn't their first time. Leo went quiet. "I'm listening," he said. Nathan recapped what Arya had shared the night before, the overheard conversation, the implication that Celeste and Nolan were part of a larger operation, one that had done this before, possibly multiple times. "This isn't about jealousy or inheritance anymore," Nathan said. "It's a business." Leo grunted. "I've suspected Vex for years. He's slippery and expensive. Only works with people who pay top dollar and ask no questions." "Then we follow the money," Nathan said. "Celeste had access to my financials. She knew what funds I was moving. She knew about the trusts. Maybe this was about power after all. And Vex was the cleaner." Leo replied, "The one who made people disappear." Nathan's tone hardened. "Then it's time someone made him visible." He hung up. "From the couch." Arya stirred. She blinked slowly as she woke, her body stiff from the night. When her eyes met Nathan's, there was a flicker of fear at first, habitual, but it softened when he smiled. "Morning, warrior," he said. She yawned. "You didn't sleep? I'll sleep when you're safe." She sat up, rubbing her face. "Did they find him? The man with the scar?" "Not yet. But they will. Leo's working on it." Arya looked down at the pendant. "He sounds like a good person." Nathan nodded. "He is." She hugged her knees, suddenly quiet. "Do you think they'll come for me?" "I think they're already trying," he said honestly. "But I won't let them near you. That's a promise." Her eyes searched his, as if trying to determine if he really meant it. She must have found what she needed, because she nodded. "I trust you." Nathan stood and crossed the room to the safe house's small desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder of documents, his private records, emergency access keys, shell accounts, safe deposit box details. For years, he'd kept it in case of disaster. Now, it would be his weapon. He flipped through until he found what he needed: surveillance logs from a private investigator he had hired months earlier. At the time, he thought it was just paranoia, his gut whispering that something wasn't right with Celeste. A dinner that didn't add up, a story that changed twice. Now, it looked like prophecy. In one report, a note stood out. Subject met with known associate Nolan Vex. Meeting lasted 42 minutes. No transaction recorded. No photos. Vex spotted surveillance and redirected camera. Nathan stared at the page. That was the missing thread. He picked up the phone again. This time, he called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Jules Tran, an information broker, former hacker, ex-intelligence analyst. She was brilliant, paranoid, and expensive, but she'd never sold out a client. "Nathan Hale," she said, answering on the second ring. "Well, damn. Thought you'd gone clean. I need a trace," he said. "On Nolan Vex. Deep dive. Offshore accounts. Private movements. Anything. You planning to kill him or hire him?" Nathan's voice was cold. "Neither. I'm going to expose him." A pause. "You're serious? I'm done pretending." Jules sighed. "All right. Give me 3 hours." He hung up and turned back to Arya, who had been listening from the couch. "Are we running?" she asked. "No," he said. "We're hunting." She smiled faintly. Later that afternoon, Jules sent a message through a secure line. Nathan opened the file, and what he saw turned his stomach. Vex wasn't just a cleaner. He was a coordinator. Bank accounts routed through the Cayman Islands. Shell companies registered in Morocco. A medical transport company in New Jersey that hadn't transported a real patient in 6 months. And then, something else. A list. 10 names. Nathan recognized 2 immediately wealthy figures, both deceased under suspicious but inconclusive circumstances. One had fallen from a balcony. The other died from accidental insulin overdose, despite having no diabetes. The most recent name was his: Nathan Hale. Target date confirmed. Asset to be transferred to Langdon Trust upon event. He stared at the words for a long time. Then his gaze dropped to the footnote. Executor Vex, approval Langdon. His heart twisted. Celeste had signed off on it. She hadn't just been a puppet. She had pulled the strings. Arya stepped up beside him, peering at the screen. "That's him," she said quietly, pointing to a grainy photo of Vex boarding a jet. "That's the man with the scar." Nathan's mind worked quickly now. "We can use this," he said. "We leak the files. Discreetly. We push the story to someone Leo trusts. Then we wait for Vex to make a move." "You think he'll run, no?" Nathan said. "I think he'll come to finish the job. And you'll be ready." He looked down at her. "I won't be alone." Arya's eyes sparkled, but there was a seriousness to her that no child should ever have to carry. "What happens if we fail?" she asked. Nathan knelt so they were eye level. "Then we try again." She nodded. He smiled. "But we're not going to fail. Together." They closed the laptop. Somewhere in the city, Nolan Vex was already sensing that the shadows no longer protected him, and Nathan was done hiding. He turned back to the safe house window and watched as dusk began to settle over the skyline. This time, they wouldn't be caught off guard. Because sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who survived. The plan wasn't elegant. It didn't need to be. It just had to be loud enough to flush out a ghost. By morning, the first wave of leaks had begun. Not through official channels, not yet. Leo had tapped a longtime contact in a local newsroom. Someone who knew how to ask questions without alerting lawyers or spooking editors. Together, they released one encrypted file to a reporter at the New York Herald a tip, with just enough breadcrumbs to raise suspicion without revealing the full picture. A private trust tied to a suspicious death, a pattern of quick cremations, a high-profile girlfriend who'd recently checked into the hospital under sedation, and a fixer Nolan Vex whose fingerprints never appeared, but whose name lingered like smoke on every fire. The file was anonymous, but it didn't matter. By noon, calls were being made. Leo confirmed that police chatter had shifted. The DA's office was paying attention. And most importantly, someone had tried to hack the Herald's email server. "They're panicking," Leo told Nathan over the secure line, "which means they're watching." Nathan stood in the center of the safe house living room, phone pressed to his ear, staring out the window at a city that now seemed to hold its breath. "What do we do next?" he asked. "We bait them," Leo said. "Make them think the job isn't done. That you're still vulnerable. Let them believe Celeste failed." Nathan exhaled. "So we make me the target again." "We make you look stupid," Leo said. "Rich, unaware, and wide open." Nathan glanced toward the couch, where Arya sat curled up with a warm blanket and a cup of hot chocolate. Her eyes were on him, listening carefully. "I'm not going to leave her alone," Nathan said. "She won't be," Leo replied. "I'll assign someone I trust to stay nearby. But if you want to bring Vex out, you have to play the part." Nathan didn't like it, but he understood. That night, he made his return. Publicly, he booked a table at a new rooftop restaurant on the Upper West Side, one that catered to New York's elite, the kind of place with crystal glasses, private elevators, and quiet corridors. The reservation went under his name. No assistant, no security detail, just Nathan Hale, the resilient CEO, recovering from a mild health scare. According to the friendly press release Leo had fed the media, it was all theater, but the kind designed to tempt a killer. He arrived just before 8, stepping out of a black town car in a tailored navy suit. No tie, calm expression. The host welcomed him warmly. Cameras clicked from across the street. He waved once and walked inside. Upstairs, the air was thick with perfume and violin music. Candles flickered on white linen tables. Conversations buzzed around him like bees low, wealthy, effortless. He chose a corner seat near the balcony, ordered a drink he wouldn't touch, then waited. Every second felt like glass under his skin. His phone buzzed a secure text from Leo. "Eyes on the perimeter." "Nothing yet," Nathan typed back. Waiting. He sat still. Let the room believe he was alone. But he wasn't. 3 blocks away, in a third-floor walk-up borrowed from one of Leo's retired contacts, Arya sat by a small radio scanner, headphones over her ears, listening to the channel Leo had given her. She was focused, disciplined. For 6 years old, her concentration was unnervingly sharp. "He's okay," she said aloud, reassuring no one. "They won't get him. Not again." She pressed a button on the scanner, adjusting frequency. Then she froze. A faint voice distorted, but audible. Confirmed location. Hale seated, wait for signal. She hit record and called Leo immediately. "They're talking." She whispered. "They said confirmed location and wait for signal." "They're close," Leo cursed softly, then relayed the message. Across the rooftop restaurant, Nathan felt his phone vibrate. 2 blocks away, black van, back entrance, 5 minutes max. Nathan nodded silently and folded his napkin. Then he stood and walked toward the balcony railing, pretending to admire the view. But in his periphery, he caught it. A flicker of movement on the service stairwell, and then the silhouette of a man stepping inside. Too confident for a guest, too casual for staff. Nathan's heart rate steadied. Here we go. The man crossed the room like he belonged, passing tables without pause. Then he turned not toward Nathan, but toward the hallway that led to the kitchens, to the service elevator, to the back exit. He wasn't here to finish the job publicly. He was checking if the room was clear. "Eyes on Vex," Leo said in Nathan's earpiece. "We've got him on the cameras. Don't move yet." Nathan nodded slightly. The man with the scar. Nolan Vex disappeared behind the hallway door. Then, everything moved quickly. 2 plainclothes officers already inside stood up, pretending to argue over a wine bill, and followed. Another team cut off the back exit. Leo's voice filled the channel. "Stand by. Stand by. We've got him. Repeat, we've got him." Nathan closed his eyes. He exhaled for the first time all night. Minutes later, Leo called. "Vex is in custody." He tried to burn his phone. "We stopped him. He asked for a lawyer, but he's rattled. Real rattled. Does he know I'm not alone?" "No," Leo said. "And he doesn't know the girl is safe. We'll keep it that way." Nathan left the restaurant under cover. He didn't look back at the safe house. Arya was waiting in the doorway when he arrived. "You're okay," she whispered. He knelt and pulled her into his arms. "So are you," he said. She clung to him tightly. Nathan held her for a long time. In the distance, sirens faded. The storm had passed, but the real storm, the one that lived in secrets and lies and hidden ledgers, was just beginning to break open. Because now there were names and confessions waiting to be made, and somewhere in a sterile interrogation room, Nolan Vex would soon have to explain why a 6-year-old girl had uncovered a conspiracy that billionaires thought would stay buried forever. Nathan looked down at Arya. "You changed everything," he said. Her voice was soft but sure. "I just told the truth. The room was cold, not by accident. Interrogation rooms always were, designed to wear a person down. Thin walls, fluorescent lights, one chair too comfortable, one chair not at all." Nolan Vex sat in the latter. His hands were cuffed. His shirt clung to his back with sweat. His slicked back hair had come undone in strands that hung across his forehead. Across the table, Leo Ramirez sat without speaking, just watching. A silence stretched between them, filled with invisible pressure. The kind that didn't need to be forced, the kind that let guilt climb up a man's spine on its own. "You gonna stare all day?" Nolan muttered finally. Leo leaned back, crossed his arms. "We already have enough to bury you," he said. "Surveillance, forensics, banking trails, the girl's recording. That was smart. By the way, recruiting a minor kitchen worker to walk Celeste through it. Less suspicion, less trace, but she saw everything, and she told everything." Nolan blinked. Just once. But Leo saw it. A crack. "You were good at covering your tracks," Leo continued. "The trust funds, the proxy accounts, even the timing of the hits. But you got sloppy with Celeste." Nolan sneered. "She wasn't supposed to panic." "No," Leo said, voice sharp now. "She was supposed to serve poisoned cake to a man who loved her, and vanish into a new life with his inheritance." Nolan leaned forward, jaw tight. "You think people like him don't deserve it? These billionaires, walking around like gods." Leo didn't flinch. "What I think," he said slowly, "is that a 6-year-old girl risked her life to stop a murder. And that makes her a hell of a lot more powerful than you ever were." The silence cracked again. Nolan's fingers twitched in the cuffs. Then very softly he said, "You want names?" Leo's eyes sharpened. "You ready to talk?" Nolan exhaled. It wasn't defeat. Not yet. But something else. Calculation. "I want a deal." Leo stood up. "No deal." "Wait. You don't get to kill people, manipulate grieving families, and then ask for a prize. You want to talk. Talk. Otherwise, I walk." He stepped toward the door. Nolan's voice cracked out. Celeste wasn't the first. Leo paused. Nolan lowered his eyes. There were others. Hale was supposed to be the last big one. The payout was massive. But I've been doing this for 5 years. Leo turned back, slowly. "You were hired always. No jobs without a client. I just cleaned up the loose ends. Poison, disappearance, asset redistribution. I made it look natural. And the clients, high level, board members, lawyers, spouses, kids who wanted the throne early. Greed doesn't discriminate." Leo pulled out a recorder and set it on the table. "Start at the beginning." That same morning, Nathan stood in his apartment, phone to his ear as Leo relayed the confession. Word by word, detail by horrifying detail. Arya sat at the kitchen counter nearby, coloring with quiet focus, though her ears were clearly tuned in. They used medical reports, Leo said. Fake terminal diagnoses. Had doctors on payroll to confirm heart failures or sudden declines. Built sympathy first, then removed the obstacles. Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. He felt nauseated. How many, he asked. Leo's voice lowered. 7, maybe more. And he wasn't the only cleaner, just the most connected. Nathan looked at Aria. She was still coloring a picture of a city skyline with stars in the sky, but her hands were slower now. She was listening. Tell me you got all this on record. Every word, Leo said. We're preparing the statement now. DA's office is involved. Press conference within 48 hours. Celeste Leo sighed. She woke up, asked for a lawyer, denying everything so far, but once she sees what Vex gave us, she'll fold. Nathan hung up and set the phone down gently, then sat across from Aria. She didn't look up. They caught him, she asked. Yes. And the others. We're working on it, but it's happening. You started it. She didn't smile. Instead, she asked, will I go backward to the system? The homes. Nathan's stomach tightened. He didn't answer immediately. Then he reached for a thick manila envelope on the table. He'd been preparing it all week. Aria, he said carefully, what if I told you? I'd like to be your home. Her eyes shot up. He opened the envelope. Papers, legal documents, guardianship filings, signatures, background checks, a sealed letter from Leo, vouching for Nathan's integrity. I know you're not used to this, Nathan said. People staying, but I'm not going anywhere. She didn't say a word. She just climbed into his lap, slowly, cautiously, and rested her head on his chest. He held her as gently as if she were made of glass, and for the first time in his life, Nathan Hale cried not out of fear or grief or exhaustion. He cried because he knew deep in his bones that something broken inside him had finally begun to heal. Later that evening, as the city lights blinked to life, Nathan received another call. This time, from the New York Herald, Mr. Hale. The voice on the other end said, We're going public. Full expose. We want your voice in it. Your story. Nathan hesitated. Then he looked down at Aria, asleep on the couch under a patchwork blanket, one hand clutching a silver pendant. You can quote me, he said. I was supposed to die, but a little girl told me the truth before the world did. That's the only reason I'm still breathing. And what do you want people to take from that, the journalist asked. Nathan thought for a moment, then said, that kindness saves more lives than cruelty ever will. And sometimes the loudest courage comes from the smallest voice. The article ran the next morning. By noon, it had gone viral. Photos of Arias drawing the skyline under stars-filled news feeds. Nolan Vex's name became synonymous with corruption. Celeste Langdon's arrest footage aired on every major network. But none of it mattered more than what happened that night at home, when Aria whispered, half asleep, Do you think my mom would have liked you? Nathan smoothed her hair gently. I think she would have been proud of you. And in a world too used to silence, her reply came like a small, perfect anthem. She already was. The wind rolled gently through Central Park, brushing over the pond and weaving through benches worn by time. It was the kind of morning that made New York feel almost quiet, like the city had paused just long enough for someone to remember how to breathe. Nathan Hale sat beneath a sycamore tree with Aria curled next to him, a children's book open on her lap. She wasn't reading, not really, just tracing the illustrations with her fingers while he watched her face, wondering how a child could survive so much and still find beauty in small things. You always come here? She asked softly. I used to, Nathan said. Before everything, before life got too loud. Arya looked up. It's not loud now. He smiled. That's because you're here. She didn't say anything, but her small shoulder leaned into his side. The last few days had been a blur of media coverage, legal fallout, and long meetings with attorneys. Celeste had officially been charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and financial fraud. Nolan Vex was cooperating under a plea deal that would keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. But that was only part of the story. The deeper victory wasn't about punishment. It was about clarity. People knew now. The world had seen. And it was Arya, not Nathan. Not the police. Not the press who had struck the match. A child with no home. No voice. No safety. Now she was the one teaching him what safety truly meant. Nathan looked out over the pond, his expression soft but serious. Do you know what today is? Arya frowned. Wednesday. He chuckled. Yes, but also, it's your birthday. Her eyes widened. No, it's not. He nodded. March 22. It's on your hospital intake form. You said no one ever remembered. She looked down quickly. Her fingers tightened around the book. People always forget. She said. I didn't. She said nothing. He stood and extended a hand. Come with me. They left the park, walked a few quiet blocks in the cool morning air. Arya asked no questions, just followed, trusting, steady. They arrived in front of a small brownstone. 3 floors, modest, quiet, with a garden out front and ivy climbing the side windows. Whose house is this? She asked. Ours, Nathan said. Her mouth parted slightly. Ours. He nodded. I bought it yesterday. Nothing fancy. But I thought maybe we'd want a place that didn't feel like a memory. He led her inside. The first thing she noticed was the light. Big windows, soft rugs, cushions that didn't match because he'd chosen them himself and never really cared about design. And in the center of the kitchen table, a cake. Vanilla, her favorite, and written in blue frosting. Happy birthday, Arya. She stood still. Is this a trick? She whispered. No, he said gently. Her eyes shimmered. You remembered. He knelt to meet her eyes. Of course I did. She reached forward and touched the edge of the cake with one fingertip, like she wasn't sure it was real. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around his neck. He hugged her tight. Later, after the cake and candles and 2 slices more than she should have eaten, they sat on the floor surrounded by the quiet hum of the house. I don't know how to be a real kid, Arya said suddenly. Nathan looked over. What do you mean I don't know how to play games right? Or what kids talk about? Sometimes I don't understand jokes. I never had toys that worked. I don't know what I'm supposed to be. Nathan considered this for a moment. Then he said, You're supposed to be exactly who you are. She looked uncertain. You're strong and curious, and you see people when most don't even look. That's not something to fix. That's something to protect. She stared at him. Do you ever feel like you don't belong all the time? Nathan said. I thought rich people always belonged. He smiled. Money doesn't fill the spaces that matter. Arya was quiet, then said, Can I tell you something? Anything, she whispered. Sometimes I still dream I'm back on the street. Alone, and no one remembers my name. He reached over and took her hand. I'll always remember your name, he said, and when you forget who you are, I'll remind you. She blinked quickly, then asked, Can I change it? Your name? She nodded. I want to keep Arya, but maybe add yours too. His heart thudded. You want to be a Hale? If it's okay. He was quiet for a long moment. then said, "It would be the greatest honor of my life." They didn't cry. They just sat there, hand in hand, in the warm quiet of a home they were still building together. The next day, the court documents were filed. Arya became Arya Hale. The media caught wind, of course, but Nathan refused every interview. This was private, sacred, not for cameras or headlines. What mattered now was keeping the promise. A few days later, Nathan stood again in front of the New York Herald building, this time not as a man in crisis, but as a man in transition. He walked inside, sat with the same journalist, and handed her a single-page statement. "I'm not here for a story," he said, "just a truth." The statement was published word for word. There are children in this city who live in shadows, who are forgotten by systems and statistics. One of them saved my life. She saw what no one else would. She believed what no one else could. And in doing so, she reminded me that our world doesn't need more power. It needs more listening. I am dedicating the entirety of my private charitable trust to the protection and support of displaced and at-risk youth, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure their names are never forgotten again. Below the statement, in cursive, were two names, Nathan Hale and Arya Hale. When he returned home that evening, Arya was waiting on the stoop. She held a small drawing in her hands, another skyline. But this one was different. The stars were brighter. The buildings had hearts inside them. And standing at the top of one skyscraper was a small girl holding a light in her hand. "What's this?" Nathan asked. She smiled. "It's you and me, watching over the city." He looked at the drawing for a long time, then said, "Let's frame it." They did, and hung it in the front hall, the first thing anyone would see when they walked into the house. A new home, a new name, and a legacy written not in wealth, but in warmth. It was one of those mornings when the city held its breath. The streets below Nathan's brownstone were quiet, in a way New York rarely allowed. No horns, no shouting vendors, just the distant rustle of wind through scaffolding and the occasional bark of a dog on its early walk. From the third-story window, Nathan Hale stood still, watching the slow light of dawn stretch across rooftops. He was dressed in his usual muted clothes, a soft sweater, old jeans, socks mismatched because Arya liked to hide them. His coffee sat untouched in his hand. He was thinking again. Behind him, laughter, light, effortless, childlike. He turned. Arya, wrapped in a blanket like a queen with a robe, came padding into the room with her arms full of paper and tape. "What's all this?" he asked. "Today's a big day," she said. "Oh, yeah." She nodded seriously, dumping the paper onto the rug. "You're giving a speech, so we're decorating." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You're decorating for a speech." "No," she grinned. "For after, in case you're nervous. I want you to come home to color and balloons." He laughed, the kind of laugh he hadn't known he still had in him. "I'm not nervous," he said, though it wasn't entirely true. She crossed her arms. "Liar." He held up a hand. "Okay, maybe a little." She softened. "You don't have to do it, you know, not if you're scared." Nathan knelt beside her. "I am scared," he said, "but not of the people or the cameras. I'm scared I won't do it. Justice. What the truth. What happened. What it means." Arya's voice was quiet. "Then just tell them what you told me. That people matter, even if no one's looking." He kissed the top of her head. "You always know what to say." "Duh. I'm a Hale now." Later that afternoon, the auditorium filled. It wasn't a red carpet event. It wasn't glamour and flashing lights. It was City Hall. Rows of wooden chairs, journalists, nonprofit leaders, youth workers, survivors. Leo Ramirez sat in the front row. Jules Tran sat next to him, sunglasses indoors and a laptop already open. Even the district attorney had come. And then Nathan stepped up to the podium. For a moment, he just stood there. Then he took a breath and began. Months ago, I almost died. Not from illness, not from accident, but from the betrayal of someone I trusted and a system that allowed it to happen. I was poisoned by someone who thought they deserved what I had, and they would have gotten away with it if not for one person. She didn't have a title. She didn't have a voice, at least not one the world was willing to hear. She had no parents, no home, no safety net. She was 6 years old, and she saved me. Her name is Aria Hale, and she reminded me that the loudest truths are often whispered by those we overlook. Because of her, we exposed a conspiracy that spanned years, cost lives, and exploited the most vulnerable among us. Because of her, I've learned that wealth is not protection, power is not purity, and silence is not peace. So today, I'm not just here to talk. I'm here to announce the creation of the Hale Foundation for Unheard Voices. We will provide direct aid, legal protection, and permanent housing to children at risk. We will fund investigative teams to uncover cases like the one that nearly ended my life. And most of all, we will listen to the kids in shelters, in alleys, in the cracks between systems, because sometimes the person you ignore is the one who can change everything. He stepped back. The room was quiet for a beat too long. Then the applause rose like a wave. Leo stood, then the others. It wasn't applause for a celebrity. It wasn't even for a hero. It was for a man who had finally decided to be human, fully and fearlessly. Nathan found Aria waiting backstage. She was wearing the little gray dress they'd picked out together. Too big in the sleeves, but she liked how it spun when she twirled. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw him. "You didn't choke," she teased. "Barely." "Did they clap?" "They did." She beamed. "Then you owe me cake." "Deal." They walked out of City Hall hand in hand, past reporters and microphones, and questions shouted into the air. Nathan didn't answer any. He just smiled. That night, as the city exhaled and life returned to its usual rhythm, Nathan sat in the living room with Aria curled up beside him, both of them sharing a slice of strawberry cake from a paper plate. The news was on, but muted. Her drawing the skyline with hearts in the buildings hung proudly in the front hall. There were already letters pouring in, from school, from kids, from social workers and families, people sharing their stories, offering thanks, asking for help, offering help. Aria looked up from her cake. "Are we going to help all of them?" Nathan didn't hesitate. "We're going to try." She leaned into him. The moment stretched, soft and perfect. Then she said, "I think this was the best birthday ever." Nathan glanced down. "That was last week." She shrugged. "I know, but this feels like a birthday, too." He smiled. Why she thought about it, her fingers tracing a swirl of frosting on her plate. "Because it's the first time I feel like I really started what she didn't need to say it. Life, hope, home." Nathan looked out at the city through the window, its towers reaching into the night like beacons. And for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of what came next. Because somewhere out there, 1,000 unheard voices were starting to whisper. And this time, someone was listening. Sometimes, the smallest voice is the one that echoes the loudest. Aria didn't have a home, a family, or even a birthday anyone remembered. But in saving a man the world couldn't touch, she reminded us of something we forget far too often. Every life matters. Every child deserves to be seen. And no act of kindness is ever small. Nathan Hale thought he was the one rescuing her. But it was she who saved him from poison, from betrayal, and from a life of emptiness disguised as success. This story isn't just about redemption. It's a call to action, to open our eyes, to listen, to fight against the quiet cruelty of indifference, injustice, and discrimination, whether it's in boardrooms or back alleys. If this story moved you, if you believe that compassion can change the world, then like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next true-to-life story that just might stay with you forever. Because here on our channel, we don't just tell stories. We give voices to the ones the world forgets. See you in the next video.